Perspectives by Sophie Bryett-Smith. I'd been wondering about where I was going to do it all week when it hit me. The ancient manor house on Lutton Avenue. This was the ideal location. A lake behind the home, abandoned and close to a tavern. Next, I devised a strategy. I would get my target drunk, then offer him a ride home and drive him to the house. Slowly but painfully torture him, then kill him and dump him in the lake. The manor house was dilapidated and overgrown, and it was absolutely desolate. It would be the ideal location for a murder if there ever existed such a thing. Even the big oak front doors seemed to welcome death, as if they were waiting for a murder to occur. The perfect murder. I'd never be discovered. The old caretaker who lived at the end of the driveway was the one weakness in my plan. I'd have to drive my victim up the driveway as silently as possible so the caretaker wouldn't notice. He's old, so I guess his hearing isn't great, but I can't risk it. I may have to kill him too. The next and most important element of my plan is determining who it will be. Obviously, it had to be a man because the whole point of this is to inflict the same misery on a man that he inflicted on me. And by him, I mean my ex-lover. That man hurt me as no one else could. And because he now lives on the other side of the world, I'd have to find another man to inflict the same anguish on. I sighed as I awoke to the sound of my work phone ringing. I picked it up and received the call. My detective partner replied, "Come immediately. There's a dead body in the lake." I grumbled and advised him to find another companion, to which he answered, "It's an interesting one. Just your scene." I informed him that I was on my way. I arrived at the place about half an hour later, and it was an intriguing setting, just as he had described it. I strolled around the back of the estate to the forensic tent, where all the police was stationed. What I saw astounded me. A disfigured corpse, covered with cuts and wounds, with all of his fingers and toes severed. His ribs were visible through his skin, and despite the fact that his face was scarcely recognizable, I knew who it was. He was last seen a few weeks ago. He appeared to have been tortured for a long time before he'd been killed. My partner walked me through the manor house's large oak front doors and down the hall to the kitchen, where I assumed the perpetrator tortured him, based on the pools of dried blood all over the floor. The kitchen was a spacious, old-fashioned affair, complete with large ovens and antique appliances. The scene looked horrifying, but yet fascinating. The blood and torture equipment strewn about. This case, I could tell, was going to be intriguing. My partner read the case specifics to me. I cringed somewhat at some of them. The killers certainly knew what they wanted to accomplish and did it in a horrific manner. The murder was obviously planned. There was no doubt about that, but I was curious as to the motive. The next day, when I returned to the office, my partner and I went over the evidence and photos of the crime scene. They had recovered no one's DNA apart from me and my partner's, which is understandable given that we were there to investigate, and there were no witnesses or suspects. However, we hadn't finished interrogating all of the persons who claimed to have seen the victim the night he went missing, so we set out to do so. We didn't have much luck, except for one individual who said he saw the victim leaving the pub with a woman that night. So she may be our suspect. And that was the only lead we had at the time. So we questioned everyone else who was there that night. We came up with a description that included brown hair, a female, medium height, and a red outfit, with one item that everyone mentioned: her eyes. Her eyes were different colours, one brown, the other green, which was remarkable because I'd only ever seen one person with such eyes, which was me. We ran all of that information through the database and discovered nothing, so clearly she didn't have a criminal record. One witness claimed they saw the suspect and victim leave in a black car afterward, and could tell the male had had too much to drink because he was stumbling and couldn't walk in a straight line. He also claimed he saw the woman get in the driver's seat, but couldn't see her face. We searched through all the CCTV footage from the bar to the crime scene and found 2 black vehicles that had gone through those routes after they left. So that was our best bet at the time. We had one of their license plates, but couldn't see the others. So we enlisted the help of some forensic video enhancement experts to see if they could zoom in further. In the meantime, we interrogated the driver of the car with a number plate that we could read, and after a long talk, we established she had a strong alibi, so we ruled her out of the investigation. We returned to the office with news that our forensics guys had identified the license plate of the second car. It was mine. I couldn't believe it. My head was spinning. There had to be some kind of mistake. So we drove over to my house, combed my car for evidence, and discovered a bloodstain in the boot. My partner shot me a disbelieving look. He took a sample and drove it over to the guys in the lab. Next morning, the results came back. The DNA from the bloodstain in the car was a match for the victims. We looked at the CCTV footage from my driveway cameras from that night, and it showed me leaving in my car wearing a red dress. I froze, and my partner reached for his phone.